There you go.
Yeah. I never did a double time. I can't.
Yeah. Like get that in Caravan? Yeah, just like that.
Yeah, I can't really do a double time. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
I hope you like that extended intro.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody, to Put That on My List. Where
Yay.
the guest comes in with the movie and the questions, and we talk about a movie we haven't seen before and take it off the list. That's how the show works for anybody who's seen an episode previously. I'm Trey Jones.
And I'm Spencer Lane.
And I'm Dominic Salima.
And Dom, you've come in with a movie.
I did, yes. I came in with Whiplash.
Yes, which is, if you've seen the title of the video and you saw my little thing, so if I just do like a little rim shot, it doesn't work as well with nothing. I'm gonna do some post editing. The sound of a rim shot.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, you heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I heard it in my head.
I know.
So
Complains about editing and then says, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Let me make my life a little harder.
Okay, so we watched Whiplash. So do
Yeah.
you want to get into telling us a bit about it or
Yeah.
asking us a question?
First of all, I like your haircut.
thank you.
Looks sharp. Yeah, I mean, I think that I saw this for the first time in high school in like my video production class. And it was easily one of my favorite top 5 movies of all time for me. I mean, I'm sure we all love like the intensity of it. The performances were great.
The music.
The music.
The music
is the best
was
part.
the
Yeah.
best part.
I mean, I think it won an Oscar for best sound. It was like best sound design or music mixing or something like that.
It better have.
Yeah. I actually won a couple of those Oscars. But I mean, I guess we'll start off like, what'd you guys think about it? This is your first time watching it.
Yes, but I'll be honest, this is one of the most spoiled for a movie I've ever been. I've seen the ending scene several times. I'm a drummer. I've done jazz drumming.
Yeah.
Although it's not my main thing. Everybody knows that, that's not quite my tempo. But most people know the most famous scenes of the movie. And I've
Yeah.
seen a lot of it. I've seen video breakdowns. I should have seen it way earlier, but it was one of those things I never got around to.
That's why I was so surprised that when you told me you'd never seen it.
As in, I'd never sat down and seen how all those
Right.
things I'd previously experienced from it came together into a whole. So it was something I had to do. So I thank you for forcing me to do that.
Of course.
But yeah, it's a great film. I'd say it's like in the high mid-level, like a high B- in terms of accuracy for band conduct. Obviously, I'm not saying that in terms of the behavior of the characters because it's fiction, and I'm sure, just as there are nightmare coaches in sports, there are nightmare band teachers. But in terms of just the conduct, kind of like the terms, the vernacular that they use in music and in drumming, I'd say it's pretty good.
Good.
Yeah. You?
I loved it. I've seen it once end to end, and I've seen the clips 1,000 times because I loved it so much. This reaffirmed that I'm amassing a collection of movies and media to show to my kids one day when, streaming costs $100 per month and you have to buy all of them if you want anything. I'm amassing that collection so I don't have to do that. And Whiplash has just moved to the top of my list again on Blu-ray. To watch because this movie was so great. Should I give it a rating now, or are we gonna get into a rating later?
We usually leave the ratings for the end of the
Okay.
show. So
Okay. I didn't know we
these
did
were just
ratings.
I mean, there's some episodes we missed the rating part, but usually when we do it at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as a sort of wrap up.
And then music was great, and J.K. Simmons was great. He
Phenomenal.
honestly reminded me of Michael Bay a lot.
That's an extreme version of Michael Bay.
they're both
Bald?
and
Sorry, Mike.
well, I
Extremely
hope
critical,
that wasn't
I
the first
guess.
time you heard that he's hairless.
Yeah.
But
But he has glasses.
he has glasses, and I think like the way that like Michael Bay runs runs his classes is I don't know, in my head I see J.K. Simmons Whiplash. Also, I'm gonna get it out of the way now. The best part of the movie is when it's quiet, and he goes, "All right, gang, Whiplash." I cheered. I got up and I screamed. I started cheering. I said, "Yes, Whiplash, Whiplash!"
But you just know, if this was a CinemaSins video, they just said roll credits, ding. I used to actually genuinely watch those as a kid
Me too.
think that they were some kind of metric for a quality of a film.
They ruined my ability to watch movies forever because now I go. I'm waiting for them to say the title of the movie the whole time.
Yeah, it's roll credits, and also the second there's any form of narration, that's a sin. Just as
I remember that.
yeah.
All right, what's your next question?
Well, let me just pull it up. Let me see what I got.
Okay.
Um,
I'll say while he's pulling that up, I really liked, I actually listened to these songs from the movie like unironically. Like these are in my playlist. I think Justin Hurwitz is like I won't call him a genius, but between this and La La Land, he knows what he's doing.
yeah. Is that the composer?
Yes, the composer. The director is also the same.
Yeah, I was
La
just
La
gonna
Land
say
and
that.
Whiplash,
I knew it was. What was it? Damien
Damien Chazelle.
Chazelle. That's what it is.
I'd like to work with him someday because he
right?
seems very awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can see like a lot of the
Okay.
All
there
right,
you
well,
go.
That's why you. That's why you always have a backup.
Just like the
set at
movie.
kit.
Just like the movie.
The
when
most
you drop the
unbelievable
stick.
part of the movie was when he's packing up his sticks for the final performance. He's only got one pair of regular sticks, and then he's got his brushes, and then he's got his mallets. And I was
thought he
like,
grabbed two.
Yeah.
no, he had sticks, brushes, mallets.
Ooh.
He did not have a second pair of sticks. And for honestly, you need 3 pairs.
Whoa.
You never know. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. So I guess my next question is how did you guys what did you guys think about his Fletcher's teaching methods, and like how'd you interpret them? Was he he was obviously the villain of the story, but would you call him like cruel or evil, I guess? If that makes any sense.
Well, I'd call him cruel. I don't
Yeah,
see how you
that-
can't call him
yeah,
cruel.
that's true.
And honestly, I'd really hate his guts if I knew him in real life. But I'll say this, and this is I'm not inviting a direct comparison between him and my middle school band teacher, because I loved my middle school band teacher. But I had a That's Not My Tempo moment in 8th grade jazz band. We were playing 25 or 6-4, which is not jazz, but
It's not.
it's like 60% of the way there with all the brass. But I could not keep up with the beat of that, and I remember it was just one horrible night. And I also didn't. I remember I had a pretty good. I thought I had a pretty good audition in 7th grade. Didn't make it. A 6th grader got it,
Whoa.
and I was a 7th grader. And
And you said, "That's my part."
that's my part, and I was mad. I
You were
cried.
discouraged.
Actually, I cried. I was
You were
discouraged. I was
discouraged.
upset.
You were upset.
So, but the deal was our band teacher was a type of hard on, like us, like made things difficult that you couldn't get away with nowadays. But it was good. It was like if you didn't have your music, he would tell you, okay, you're going to sit in the back of the class and you're going to write the music from memory. And then, of course, that doesn't happen. And it's like, yeah, you're going to get like a bad grade for the day, but you come back and you don't forget your music this time
You
around.
do not forget your music.
And I remember because my brother-in-law got the position after him, and he quit because they didn't let him do anything. He couldn't give the kids bad grades for forgetting their instruments because a parent would complain, and the school board would be like, okay, you can't discipline that kid anymore, even if it's just a bad grade. It's not like you're going up and paddling the kid in front of the whole room or giving him a dunce cap.
Throwing
You're
a
just
symbol
saying
at his head.
you're not doing the class right. So it's like, on one hand, I understand the frustration that Fletcher's character gets when it comes to discipline and when it comes to trying to get the best out of your students. But it's the craziness that comes out of that. Like, you think you're so certain you're doing the right thing by these students to treat them this way, nothing stops you from going too far.
Right.
That's what I really thought was interesting.
Yeah. I guess a part of me like did kind of resonate or understand his philosophy behind his methods, in the sense that it takes a lot to find the drive in someone who wants to be great, or to find that sort of drive in the right kind of people. So, like, for example, I don't know how well versed you guys are in sports, but, like, Tom Brady, greatest quarterback of all time, he had that same obsession with football that Andrew has in the film, where he dedicates everything, and it's just like this whole mindset, which you can argue is pretty unhealthy. But Fletcher, what's the best way to put this? He's trying to, like, I get with the toughness of it. I guess I just understand where his philosophy falls, where he's just trying to, like, get that dog out of his students or out of a certain someone.
Yeah.
But, like, yeah, he does kind of get too cruel and too abusive.
Think another of the greatest. You think of Michael Jordan and how he would be in practices, how he would dog on his teammates.
Kobe Bryant.
He'd such a jerk. And it's like, it was meant to drive them. And it's like,
right.
It's always one of those things you can look at it from a distance and you can say, that's the right thing to do because it inspired greatness. And then you're the one having it done to you. And it's a totally different feeling.
Right.
Yeah. Spencer, you haven't gotten your chance to answer.
There are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job. Yeah. I think Fletcher is on the right track. Because I think they say it exactly in the movie. If someone who has the potential to be great messes up and someone goes, that's okay, good job, they're going to immediately say, yeah, all right, well, if they said good job. As soon as he said that, I was on his side. Because, like, there's no way, like, greatness doesn't come from just everyone sitting around and being like, I think we all did very well. I think we all had our strengths. And while we all have our weaknesses, I feel like, no. Tell me what I did wrong. Well, don't tell me what I did wrong because I do everything right and I take all forms of constructive criticism as just personal attack. But
this is another moment to bring up English class, isn't it?
Yes.
Well,
sure.
we will wait on that.
Well, yeah, just wait until Wednesday when we have to read my story and everyone is giving me personal attacks.
I liked it, and I did read it.
Good.
We won't get into that.
I just think that Fletcher is. I understand his methods, and once again, the Michael Bay comparison. I was like, if my professor was like that to me, if he was like, you could be really good at filmmaking, you just gotta not suck for once in your life. I'd actually apply myself. But when I do narrative filmmaking and our film isn't even complete, and the professor just goes, well, thanks for handing what you had in. No, give us a 0.
Right, and it's like you kind of need like both roles need the two kind of personalities that fit that. Like, you can't just have like a easygoing professor with a student who's like wants to do something but he's not as committed or driven. But in Whiplash, you have that student who has this mindset, that Tom Brady, Michael Jordan mindset, where he wants to be one of the greats, and that's all he has that's his purpose, essentially. Yeah. And then you have that hardcore teachers trying to bring it out of him. So I do agree with a lot of like Spencer's saying, like when I was trying to speak earlier and get my thoughts out, that was the scene that was going on in my head where it's the worst. The hardest, what do you say? The worst, like, two words.
The two words.
The two most harmful words in the English language.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to say that you shouldn't say good job, because you should say good job. The flaw is to not reward good work. You shouldn't reward bad work. You should be like, no, you've got some stuff to work on. And I'm thankful that my professors in English and also in filmmaking have been honest about, like, either this is something that could be done better, or that's just flat out a bad idea.
Yeah.
Like, you can get really up in your head about an idea and be like, it's so good, I just need to realize it. And they're looking at from their years of experience or whatever and being like, trust me, don't waste your time.
Trust me. I will say, I was actually thinking about English class too when I was watching this, and I feel like, I don't know if you noticed this, but in our English class, there were a lot of good job people in that class. Like, there's a lot of stories, I feel like, where our professor will be like, yeah, good job. But then I noticed for me, he'll have like a list of things to say about my story. And I almost feel like originally I was looking at that like, oh my God, he hates me. But now I'm looking at it like, I think he sees something in me, or I need to see something in myself too, because he's not telling me good job. He's not giving me the extra time that we have because no one else has anything to say about my story to talk about my own story.
Yeah.
He's using all that time to be like, here is everything I found in your story. So I don't know if you noticed that too, but like, maybe the other side of the room, the faces over there.
Yeah.
They get a lot of good jobs over there.
Well, I don't want to name names, especially because they're desperately saying over and over again in class, you guys should get a podcast. And little do they know there is a podcast. So in case anybody's watching, it's not you we're talking about. It's definitely not. It's just the one right next to you.
Yeah, it is.
Dom, what is your next question?
So this one's kind of coming right off the dome, but, and let me know if it doesn't really quite make sense to you guys, but, I've noticed two cinematic aspects of this film that stood out to me the most and kind of impacted the story the most, and that was the color and lighting, and then like the sound and audio design. So I would say, which of those two stuck out the most to you guys?
I like to answer this first because I immediately know the answer. It's the sound and the audio design. I feel like the use of score and diegetic sound is literally just perfect. Like, you can't even tell that they're like that. It's a like in the band scenes. You're like, oh no, they're definitely like playing this. Like, you can suspend your disbelief that they're playing it, because of how well it is all mixed and stuff. I will say, the final scene, the final caravan drumming scene, I was almost taken out of the immersion though with all of the like the cuts and the high angles and the switches of perspective. I really feel like the film works very well as like this piece where it's like you're just watching something happen and you're not really like you're not watching a movie. But at the end, it's very hard to not see it as a movie when it's like here's a high angle and then here's a low angle and here's a dramatic shot and all that.
Maybe they try a little too hard.
Maybe, yeah.
On one hand, I agree. On the other hand, I am perfectly fine to appreciate a film that's being a film. And I'll say this much about it. This is one of the most efficient screenplays I've ever seen. Almost to a point where I wouldn't say it's a fault, but I'd almost say it sometimes feels empty. It's so efficient. It's like every interaction is meant to feed into the same thing. And that emptiness, I feel, is a core essential to the film's narrative because Neiman is supposed to feel alone because he's pushing literally everybody away except for Fletcher in his quest for greatness. He pushes his girlfriend away, then he pushes his father away. His father is on the other side of the door watching at the end. He's no longer got any control over his son in terms of like, maybe don't do this, don't embrace this relationship that got you in a car crash and it caused you to literally crash out. But at that point at the end of the film, it's supposed to be a full, I almost see those wide shots that you're talking about as like the audience is totally out of the shot because the light, the shadow kind of masks them away. It's almost like where he's meant to seem lonely when the lights go down and it's just the light on him. And yeah, it's a lot more artsy and less grounded, but I think that was what was trying to be shown there. Yeah. I also just want to point out the lighting because you mentioned the lighting and the color. Because I know it's controversial because I've seen YouTube videos where it's like, I de-pissed Whiplash.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it does just look like they accidentally had the interior scenes on the wrong white balance level. They had it on sun balance instead of light or, bulbs.
Yeah.
But obviously it was meant to sort of add to the uncomfortability, like the uncomfortable warmness.
Yeah, like in the practice rooms, those were all those scenes were pretty much gold.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And any performance scene when they first go when that first tournament, the band's out on the stage. It's that same lighting, same thing at the end. That orange lighting, golden lighting, comes up again.
And the first band room he's in at the beginning with the lower level band is not like that. It's lit
It's like
a normal room.
naturalistically. It's a normal room.
And like the way after rewatching it again, which was actually this morning when I rewatched it because I didn't have any time this weekend.
I watched it last night.
There you go. When I rewatched it, I thought to myself, if I were showing someone or explaining to someone the importance of sound and color and lighting in film, I would show them this movie because they're both like such high extremes to the story. Like they're like you said, like there's just so much saturation. Like there's a lot of greens in the beginning of the movie, and then like literally the opening shot, the first thing I noticed is that we have that frame within the frame of Neiman playing the drums, and we're creeping up to him. But Neiman's all lit in blue light, or soft blue light. It's kind of where he's still innocent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's what it's kind of supposed to represent. At least that's what it came across to me. And then the green is that uneasy, villainous person, which is creeping up to him, which we come to see is the POV of Fletcher in that opening shot, and that really stood out to me. So like, it's just so easy to point out the emotional color differences across the film, and also the use of like hard lighting really puts like that makes those intense moments so much more intense.
Yeah, it's not a soft movie.
No.
In any way.
Very rarely. Nope. And I think they switched to soft lighting for a little bit right after the climax where he tackles Fletcher for giving up the role after the car crash, and he's like living this life, gave up drumming for a few months or however long it was. And you notice a lot of natural, soft kind of lighting. Yeah, exactly.
And he didn't. And that is interesting because at the end, Fletcher is like, I know it was you. And am I right in reading that? I just want to make sure that's not wrong.
I was also confused on if he
did snitch.
If he did it.
And say snitch. Honestly, in that situation, I'd say it would be fine to snitch. I'm not saying that like derogatorily.
Nah.
I was like, let's be honest, that's a little far.
I mean, the way I interpret it is that he did.
Okay. Maybe it's supposed to be up for interpretation.
That's what the film does a lot. Like, who stole the folder? Was it Fletcher?
I think it was Fletcher. I don't see, because you saw him in the background of one of the shots right when he puts it down. I think Fletcher took the folder.
Yeah.
But you get that a lot with his meddling throughout the film.
Right.
It's not
good.
The only one he admits to is the fact that he had the redhead come in only to motivate him, and that he never saw any skill in him.
Even then, you like in that scene where he reveals that's when he's asking Neiman to come play for this new band he's a part of for this festival, right? Mm-hmm. And then he does the whole kind of screws him over with playing the wrong song. In that conversation, he's like, "Oh, I only invited Connolly to incentivize you."
So like, maybe it's double manipulation.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like, oh, he's only there because I thought you were the best, and I wanted you to go harder. It's all because of you, and that's, I mean, essentially, like, he did manipulate him. Yeah. He made Neiman trust him again.
Yeah, and it is really interesting how the layers of his manipulation are sort of put down, because you don't know exactly what he's intending all the time. He's meant to be very difficult to read. But I just thought, that was very interesting. I also noticed, and I was scrolling on my phone, not because I was disinterested, but because I was double-checking that this was shot on digital, which it was. And it very much had the look of like those late 2000s, early 2010s digital films that I really like.
Yeah, it was very grainy at times.
They are made to look like they were shot on film.
Right.
Because they're made by directors who still have the chops from film cinema. Mm-hmm. And like, I'll watch a movie like Superbad, and I think that really looks like it was shot on film, but it wasn't. And like the way the lighting and color grading is done, usually favoring the warmer tones, which is very much more like a lot of older films that had that warmer tone, and those sort of grainier bits from the poorer 1080p resolutions of those cameras look like grainy film. And I really like that look. But it did sometimes look to me, when I saw some of the cranked saturation, that it did look like kind of like, not iPhone video, but it really did look like the saturation was cranked, and that probably wasn't what it looked like when they were filming it. I just wanted to note that because I do know this was Damian Chazelle's first feature film.
Yeah.
Not first film,
Yes.
because there was a short before this.
I was gonna bring this up.
He
Yeah.
made
Yes.
the Whiplash short film
Yeah, which
with
wasn't.
J.K. Simmons, but not Miles Teller.
Yeah, I
funny
was just gonna
enough.
Yes.
say it was. I don't know if you guys ever got around to watching that. I watched it about a year ago, and it's only just the that first scene where he shows up to the band for the first time, the first practice.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's just that same like, not quite my. I don't know if it's. I can't remember. It's been long since I've seen the short,
Yeah,
but it's the not quite my tempo scene, or
Yeah.
and then they have that whole little fiasco. But
So I don't know if that short was written with the film in mind, and it was just that scene taken out of the screenplay he may have already written because he was intending to make it, and this was just his proof of concept version,
Yeah.
or if he wrote that scene as a standalone and then worked it into the feature film. I tend to think it's the former.
yeah,
Because
the
I know how a lot of
concept.
directors are who are like first timers and they're trying, because like that's how I am. I've got a screenplay that I really want to make into a film someday, and I've come up with a bazillion weird schemes I might get, from publishing it as a short novel to this or that, to try to be like, how do I get the proof of concept for this thing out so that I, who have nothing to my name, could maybe get it made someday.
Right.
And so I see that as like the director was like, I'm not a big shot, but I want to see this done. Obviously,
It's still listed as like an indie film too.
It is. And it's, I mean, to be fair, there's a lot behind that, including in the acting department that, they still got J.K. Simmons to do that. But I think I read a little behind the scenes about how that he didn't expect it to actually get him.
Right. That always blew my mind, is that you have this A-list actor in this short film with a bunch of, well, essentially nobodies.
Yeah.
Not to be like rude or anything, but it's just like he sticks out like a sore thumb. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
But
Did you notice that his name isn't Neiman? It's Naaman. And Fletcher deliberately calls him the wrong name throughout the entire thing, and you've both fallen for it.
Really?
I didn't know
Yes.
that.
He's Andrew Naaman,
Naaman.
but
Huh.
Fletcher
he says
calls him
Neiman.
Neiman to get him mad or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
But he never corrects him.
He never does.
And
Why would he?
I don't know if this is just a weird thing that only I saw, but like Fletcher has like this really like long squiggly vein on the side of his head.
I saw that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of it made me more mad than everything else he did. Like he'd throw a cymbal or a chair or whatever, and I'd be like, whatever. But then he'd like have a close up shot, and I'd see his vein, and I'd be like, ugh.
And you want to know why you noticed that is because of that hard lighting, and
Yeah.
you saw the sweat
Yeah.
all over his face.
And
Oh
that's,
my
I
God,
think,
so many
why
sweaty
they
men in this
had
movie.
him bald in this film. Because,
Yeah.
he is a balding actor, but he's not bald. Obviously, it was a deliberate choice. They wanted to go full bald with it. And I think it was that, and like just how built he is.
Yeah.
Like his
J.K.
arms
Simmons
are
is
massive.
ripped, dude.
And like the tight shirts he wears, like in those scenes, that makes him look very,
Muscular.
monstrous.
Yeah,
monstrous
they
in
do a lot of
ways.
low angle shots, especially from like Naaman's point of view.
Yeah.
From there's this one, I think, when they're going through all three drummers trying to find who can play Caravan at the right tempo, and then Neiman looks up at him and he's just like staring down, and it's from Neiman's point of view, and
Yeah.
it just makes him look very menacing.
It's just really fascinating. I know we're getting shorter on time here, so do you have any last questions?
Yeah, so I say the first time I watched this movie, or the first few times, I felt inspired by Neiman's drive, and because like I think I could say the same thing. I want to be one of the greats one day. I think maybe the three of us can say that too. I don't know about you guys, or there's a lot of other students here at the DPF or throughout the film industry that say they want to be one of the greats. Excuse me. But after watching it so many times, you start to kind of find where to draw the line of like what's an unhealthy mindset, and then what's like a tolerable mindset. But my question is like, what do you think this ultimately says about greatness and striving to be one of the greats.
I think what it says is, like most issues, greatness is great, but it comes with a price, and you can lose yourself in it. And this film is definitely like the way it ends. He chooses which direction he wants to go. He chooses to go for the way of greatness, which, regardless of what he thinks about Fletcher, means seeking his approval.
Right.
And I think it's a story about how oftentimes to be great means you have to push people away. And it's like, what is your priority at the end of the day? Because a lot of people, myself included, will look at Naaman's actions at the end of the film and really throughout the film and like how cold he can be. Because at the beginning, like when you have the talk with his family at dinner and it's the whole jock versus arts student debate, age old as time, you can really relate to his character. You can relate to that sort of underdog mentality. But then he starts to move into the, I hesitate to say insufferable, but it can feel like that sometimes, where he's just like, he shoves people away because this is what he believes he has to do.
Right.
And he's idolizing these stories of people attacking each other in studios as this is the model to know that I'm going the right direction, is because of violent outbursts.
Right.
And it's like, the film doesn't tell you what to think at the end, but it presents a pretty two-sided debate. And you gotta pick at the end of the story. And he picks, but do we have to agree? No. And that's what I really like about the way it's all framed. And then he hits the snare at the end, song's over, movie's done. I love that.
Yeah.
Spencer.
I'm trying to think of how to articulate this. We can't all be great. I've held this belief for a long time. We can't all be great. Someone has to be out there to turn your pages. Like, it's I notice this a lot in like the communication classes. Everyone wants to be the writer. Everyone wants to be the director. No one wants to be lights or sound. We can't all be the writer and the director. Someone has to be lights and sound. And I think what's shown in this movie is, to be great, you cannot just rely on skill alone. You have to have that craziness in you to push yourself farther than someone else. It's best articulated in the staying up all night drumming scene. Anyone with a lick of sense would have walked out after like the 8th turn on the drum kit, and they're all bleeding and sweating over it. But they're all crazy. Naaman especially is so crazy that he will just continue to do this until his arms fall off. And that's ultimately what gets in the part, is he is just crazy enough that he holds out longer than the other guys and manages to get it right.
Crazy enough to crawl out of a broken vehicle to run to the concert.
You gotta think about who will crawl out of a broken vehicle out of all of us. Like, think of the comm department. Who will do that for Michael Bay? You know, who will do that for Jay Forsyth?
I think both of those men would tell you that you should probably not do that, and if you did, they would probably tell you to go home for the day.
I mean,
but then you don't go home, and you keep going.
Then a restraining order.
Neither of them are psychologically abusive in any way. Just want to make that clear.
All real world parallels, not 100%. Don't read into it.
Just because they're both bald, you're right. I'm sorry. That's bald discrimination.
But like, to your point, what you were saying earlier, he does choose this other path. And one thing I just love so much about the ending of this film is that it's ultimately a bittersweet, hiddenly, maybe you can argue that it's hidden or not, but it's bittersweet in the sense that both the hero and the villain won. The hero got this recognition or acceptance, approval by Fletcher, like you said, and then Fletcher found his star student in Naaman, someone who's crazy enough as he is to push themselves to the absolute limit to be great. And will Naaman end up being great? Who knows? That's up to the watcher.
Also, he was completely, the dinner scene, I remember bringing this up now. Naaman totally, like, he owned those football guys. Division III. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Why are we really?
4 words you won't hear from the NFL.
Go play with us. 4 words you never hear from the NFL. Division III. I mean, I was on Naaman's side. I was like, dude, I mean, your family.
Well, that's what I mean.
Sucks.
In that scene, you're totally behind
anyone
them
would
because
be.
they're
Yeah.
and they're so dismissive from the beginning. And I think that is the ultimate tragedy, is that, yes, still to this day, this came out in 2014, to this day, there's some appreciation in niche music-loving crowds for jazz music, but it didn't make some big comeback. I mean, I know Damian Chazelle must love it because immediately after this, he made La La Land.
He was in the jazz band
Peak.
for a lot of his life. I'm pretty sure he did that in school at some point.
And I love jazz.
I love La La Land.
I'm not that great at it, but I do like to play it. I'm much better at rock and roll. It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
But jazz, it's
just a diverse kind of music genre. You know what I mean?
For every like one person who's like, oh, I love how intricate it is, and I love the improvisation, and I love seeing the real instruments being played, you're going to get 5 more people who say it's elevator music. And unfortunately, I think the greatest tragedy is ultimately Neiman might have ended up being really good for the jazz crowd, but he's not going to be a Buddy Rich, because Buddy Rich came out of a time when jazz was famous across the music world. Yeah. And now you're just a pretty good musician who's going to get some pretty good crowds.
It's a very good prequel, a spiritual prequel to La La Land, because Sebastian struggles with this same predicament almost in La La Land, where he's like, I want to make a jazz club, and Emma Stone's character, Mia, and Mia's like, no one listens to jazz. I don't like jazz. And he's like, how can you not like jazz?
Yeah.
I'm with Sebastian on that. La La Land is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and I think Whiplash is as well. Which, what does that say about Damian Chazelle?
What about First Man, Babylon? He's making another film.
He made Babylon?
He do Babylon?
He did.
Oh man, I gotta watch that.
I never ended up watching it.
I never ended up seeing it.
I heard it was
bad at first, but then I heard good things after
I think
a while.
I think it was an expectations thing. I heard that people, it's weird. You're gonna be late for class if we don't wrap this up soon. So that was Whiplash. It's clear we could talk about this for a whole nother podcast episode, but unfortunately we have to wrap up for the day. Go and practice your ratomacues and your paradiddles. That's been the show.
This movie was a 10 out of 10. They didn't let me say it, but this movie was a 10 out of 10 for me.
10 out of 10. 9.9 repeating. And I check it off my list. And you.
He did the thing.
10 out of 10.
Okay, that's the episode.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, guys.